Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again to the next episode. We've made some progress over the last two episodes. We've kind of gotten some work done here in the menu, and we actually link the user outside of the application. And then here we have a primitive favorite system that we can, you know, that we would like to build or that you would expect to have maybe in a particular UI here. So the problem that we're facing though is the fact that Manchester United right now is favorited according to the UI, but if we go back and come back in, that's not the case. The app is losing sight of any of the modifications that we do on this screen to the data that is fueling this screen, which ideally, for the app to feel cohesive, it needs to have that visibility here. So I guess the simplest way to go about this is running into this issue here. 1 second, sorry. Is to actually put this, make this static. And so there is no static keyword here in Kotlin. Instead, it exists in something called a companion object. And so anything that runs or anything that's defined inside this block is actually static. So now if we were to go into here, into the soccer detail activity, we can actually just go ahead and reference the soccer tile list as if it was, a part of this class. So we're going to go ahead and make this modification for now to kind of get something on the board and get something showing, but I will discuss another alternative that that came to mind. That would be a good time to introduce the application class, and then we will continue from there. So more or less, there's nothing that has to happen here. There's no changes that need to be made to the code. Everything is fine. It all compiles and will run properly, except we no longer need to actually go ahead and pass in the entire soccer tile that the user has clicked, because this activity now has a way to reference it. So part of the reason that I went ahead and made this structure or this object have an ID is so that we can actually reference the ID that, reference some tile by its ID. So we have here the position for when the Learn More button is clicked on the screen. So we know exactly which position they're clicking, and that matches up to which position in the list they are referencing. So you see here we can grab our soccer tile, but instead of going ahead and actually putting in the entire object, we're going to go ahead and put in the soccer tile ID, and we're just going to go ahead and reference the actual ID. So now in this case, we are not making use of, or we're no longer making use of the fact that this class extends serializable. So we can go ahead and just remove that, and now we have a clean data class here that we do not need to serialize and deserialize between activities. It's going to tell you that this cannot succeed anymore because it's a non-serializable object, but that's okay. We don't actually need to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is say soccer tile equals main activity soccer tile list dot find. I'll go ahead and go to the next one. It dot ID equals intent dot get string extra soccer tile ID. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this for a second. So we actually no longer need this this thing here, except we will take this Elvis operator away. So we're not getting the soccer tile as an object in the intent, so we're just going to go ahead and delete that, and instead we're actually going to go ahead and get it from the list. So this right here, main activity soccer tile list, is referencing the static list that we have on the main activity, and then we're invoking the find function here. And so this provides a block of code that you can actually run, and it will loop over, because this is a collection, it's an array list, it will loop over each item in the list linearly, and it will run this check for you. So we're going to go ahead and check it.id, and it in this case is actually the soccer tile. So as it iterates over each tile in the list, it's basically passed into this find function and allows you to say yay or nay, is that the one that we're looking for? So the idea here is that you're actually supposed to, as you can see, our predicate, which exists this find, this block here that runs in the find function, needs to return a Boolean. So if they click the Manchester City, this find function is going to run. It's going to pass in the first soccer tile, which is this Manchester United one, and it's going to say, does this thing's ID equal the ID that we've passed in through the intent? No. Okay, it'll go to the next one, and it will find the fact that this ID matches the one that was passed into the intent, and then it will actually just grab that that soccer tile and assign it to this variable here. The reason that we needed this Elvis operator, or this thing is freaking out, is because it says you require a soccer tile and it found a nullable soccer tile, meaning that it's possible that when you call this find function, that if the code doesn't find something that matches this predicate, where this predicate, or satisfies this predicate, where it becomes true, it will just default to null. So this entire statement here is saying we have our soccer tile object. It says assign the soccer tile object to whichever tile exists in the main activities list where this is true, and if that fails for whatever reason, if we don't find anybody that satisfies that condition, then we will default to this soccer tile that is just kind of our blank error statement, or our blank error state. So hopefully that makes sense. We're kind of inlining one thing here, so I'll just go ahead and say selected soccer tile ID, and I'll just say selected soccer tile ID equals what we get from the intent, right? So we're fetching the ID that we get from the intent. Just going to go ahead and make sure that this is the same. Yeah, make sure this is the same. So a button is clicked, we get our soccer tile, we get our intent to go to the next screen, we put in the soccer tile's ID, we launch the intent, we find ourselves over here in the onCreate, we go ahead and fetch the ID that was selected from the intent, and then we loop through our soccer tile list, find the one that has an ID that matches that, and then if not, we have a little bit of a backup plan here. So ideally nothing should change here. The code should work just fine. And if we go ahead and favorite this and go back here, now this is favorited, right? And now this this screen has an understanding of modifying the correct elements in the list here, right? So we can go ahead and change all of these, and then we can go ahead and check out which one. We can see that this information is getting carried over. So if we go ahead and hit a breakpoint real quick, I'll go ahead and show you that. Main activity soccer tile list. Let's go ahead and just do the filter option where it is favorited, and there should be 3. Yeah, there should be 3, and it's Manchester United, Manchester City, and Tottenham, the ones that we've actually gone ahead and selected. So that you can see here at this point, because we've made this field static, we actually now have reference to it basically anywhere in the application, and as long as we don't run out of memory and the app crashes, we're going to be fine. We're going to always have this list, and anyone's going to have access to it. So because we're essentially grabbing the correct tile in this list, when we go ahead and pass that information into the screen again, when we go back to it, we've modified the Boolean on the master list, so we get that carried over into this. And then because of our little onCreate options menu here, we inflate our menu, we give a quick check to say, is this tile favorited? And if it is, we go ahead and draw the correct tile. We draw the correct icon in this place, right? So if we unselect it and we go back, now it is no longer favorited as well. So now this seems to be good, right? This UI seems to actually be working, and everything is all good. So that's cool. That's really nice. A little weary. Oh, sorry, no, that's not it. A little weary of doing this, setting a particular object to be, or a list in this case, to be static on the particular activity. It's not really the best practice. There are a handful of other ways to get around this, but the problem that we were facing is that we actually need, a scope that encompasses both this activity and this activity so that we can actually view the same object, or we can reference the same list in different activities so that either activity can modify that list and then the UI will react accordingly. So, with that being said, we can go ahead and create another class here. I'm just going to call it EPL application. Okay, if I could spell it right, that would be nice. Okay, so instead of just changing, the L here, and now it doesn't look like a class, it just has this little Kotlin file. Go ahead and right click and not new, but refactor, rename, and put the L there, and it renames the class name and any references to it if that were to be the case, and then we're all good. But what we can actually do here is have this extend application. And let's see if there's some good. No, not really. Oh yeah, here. So base class for maintaining global application state. So I'm going to put a little something on screen over here in a second, but if you could imagine, we had the diagram before of the activity containing the adapter, and then the adapter contains the view holders and all of those views. The application class actually is basically the parent class that exists for your application. And so when we override this on create, this is going to run when your application gets created, not when, or I guess similarly, the on create function for the activity, that's at the activity level, that runs when it gets created. So in this case, we click learn more and a new screen comes up. That screen had been created, and if we go ahead and go back, it's now destroyed, and we go in again, it was created one more time, right? So that was where our problem was rooted in. It was getting created and destroyed every time, and we didn't have visibility to an object across both activities. But the application class itself actually will be, it will exist once and only once for your application. So you can kind of store some high-level information here, about your application, as it said in the docs. The what's it called, to maintain like a global state of the object or of your application. Sorry. You can do a whole bunch of config stuff here, and essentially this is going to run and be created before any of your activities are. So you can use that to your advantage in the future when there's something that needs to be done, immediately on app open, or if you need to initialize something but you need it initialized before activities get created, you can do that here. So we're just going to go ahead and just create a little variable here to hold our application. And so I'm not going to go ahead and do it because I don't want to have to refactor everything right now. But if we were to just take this out and put this over here, you'll now have this list accessible at the application level, and so you won't have to worry about like one particular activity holding on to it in a static way. The entire application can hold on to it in a static way. So you can use this as a tool to, if we were to do EPL application, soccer tile list, I don't know, and you wanted to reference the first one, you can do that here, and then you can also do it again, here. So another way to store something globally for your application, I would nudge you in that direction a little bit if you're going to be dealing with activities. to have the stuff stored in the application class, because again, it's kind of like the parent, um, the parent to all of the activities, and all the activities are created and destroyed within the context of this application. So you do have like a sandbox there that you can kind of use to your advantage. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and keep it simple and keep it in the activity, because I'm not foreseeing this application getting too much larger. But we will go ahead, and I at least wanted to bring that up because this is most definitely an important class to use at some point. Like I said, when there's some initialization that needs to happen, or some high-level config, or even just some greater state. Maybe if the user is logged in or logged out, or I don't know. There are countless uses for it, but most definitely a little overkill for what we're doing at this moment. The last thing that you need to do is, once you've created a class that extends activity, or extends application. Right, we're already in the application class. We're within the application tag, and so if you actually set the name to be the class you created that extends application, now when you run the application, this onCreate will run, and now this is essentially everything we've been talking about. This is your application class, and will be the parent to your entire app during its life cycle. Very important that you do this though, without notifying the manifest that, hey, you've created a class that extends application. I do not believe that it will invoke this class to create, and it just won't be there. Again, overkill, but it is another option. It's something to know about, and for now we're just going to proceed with this one. And as you can see, we at least got that's good enough for what we need to do here. So we're able to translate this information across screens. So hopefully all this made sense. You got a little bit more insight into the Kotlin find function here, and then how this predicate thing works, and a little bit more Elvis operator. And so things start to kind of chain together sometimes with Kotlin, and so that's why I'm trying to break it down. Hopefully this makes sense. Yeah, if you look at it and kind of segment it apart, it actually does start to really kind of flow, and I've just kind of put them all together because I'm just used to it. But it is very nice, and it's nice you don't need to like spin up an entire for loop and have just this crazy verbose thing going on to find the correct tile in the list that we were looking for. Thanks for tuning in. In the next episode, we'll go ahead and just maybe add a favorites button here, so now we can have bidirectional communication on this object, whether we're at this high level or we're within this inner level. We'll be able to kind of modify, and the UI will update accordingly. So I'll catch you there.